Welcome back to another episode of Keoni Chats. My guest today is Emily Walker, and I met Emily as I was making my way into the journalism field. I was a student at Lake Community College, same as Emily, and she played for the women's soccer team. And I didn't know I wanted to be a journalist, but I had the idea of what I want to do. I just didn't know what the first steps were. So this is where I took my first steps towards being a journalist and, pursuing that degree. So I was assigned to follow and report on women's soccer and men's cross country. And I just remember watching my first ever women's soccer game for Lake Community College. And there were a few players that obviously were great at their craft and made it to that level that cannot be ignored. So it's like, congratulations to every single one of them. But when I saw Emily Walker play, oh my God. I even told her this in the interview. It's just, I saw such ferocity. I just saw intense. I saw a competitor. So I was it was awesome to see. It was awesome to be a part of. It was a good conversation. We did talk about some of the sacrifices she had to make in order for her studies to always, take that accelerated priority. And I, again, we can't say thank you enough to Emily for taking time out of her extremely busy life to sit with me and talk. So if this is your first time checking out the show, welcome. If you would like to follow the show on all podcast platforms, you can do so by just clicking follow on the page. Or if you like to watch the show, you can go to youtube.com and search Keoni Chats. Granted, Emily is not the most well-known public figure. I know my last guest, Dennis Dixon, it was fairly high in the public eye. But a majority of my guests are not in the highest profile. When I got into podcasting, I just saw it as, celebrity talks with fellow celebrity about a big project, garnish a lot of viewerships. I think these people that I'm talking to are telling great stories about how they're able to overcome whatever obstacles they had to face in order to get to where they are today. So if you're interested at all, check us out some more. I got more episodes, plenty more. So plenty more episodes for you to check out previously. You have plenty more for you to check out going forward. So follow, subscribe on all those podcast platforms and YouTube. And then you can also look up the show on social media by going to at KCmedia13 on Instagram and Twitter, and then Conluke Media on Facebook. So follow on those, because I will be posting when episodes are released all throughout social media. And then as you're watching this interview, you'll see on the, your lower right, I believe it should be right here, that you have my website, keoniconlu.com, KEONICONLU.com, because outside of this podcast show, I do other types of creative outlets. So I do have a DC Animated Universe review series. So 2021, I am still working through that one, obviously because it's still 2021, but I guess when this is recorded. And, it's so much fun just to get back to watching DC movies again, because once I got to that point of the ending 2020, I stopped working on the blog series for a very long time. But then it got to the point where some of these episodes, because I did change my release schedule to be every other week, so it did give me some extra time to work on the DC Animated Review series, blog series, because I knew some movies came out. So that was fun. Please check that out. That can be under blogs, and then I believe there's another tab for that as well. I also do take photos, so it's one of those, I don't have like a specific market for my photography. It's just, I'm going out to public. Let me bring my camera. This would be cool. So that's the extent of my photography. If you'd like to have me take some photos of you, I'll do my best. I'll do my best. But I'd love the challenge. So check out that website if you want more creative content from me. And then also audio podcast episodes are found on the homepage, but then the videos are found in the video tabs when you click menu. If you're on your phone, for example, if you click menu, you'll see videos, Keoni Chats, and then it should still be up there if you're on the webpage on your laptop. So check it out, and then let me know what you think. I love to interact with the fans, and yeah. So thank you so much for check out the show. Stick around. Check out other episodes. It's a lot of fun. So, however you are listening to Emily Walker's episode on whichever platform you prefer, or if you are watching on YouTube, I hope you enjoy my chat with Emily Walker. And then, yeah, you're looking at screens, and then I just remember, I think it was that transition from like where tablets became more accessible. Maybe I saw this in Grey's Anatomy, where they like went from using paper as like the charts to tablets. You're
Mhm.
looking at more and more screens every day.
Yeah. Yeah. We in class now, we take all of our notes on iPads. And then when you're not in class, you're having the lectures on like your computer. So regardless, you're staring at a screen all day.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So thank you for staring at a screen for a little bit longer with me.
No problem.
So I think I remember also hearing recently like the blue light from the screen is harmful
Mhm.
to the eyes or something like that. Have you what's the science behind that, doctor?
I don't know all of the science, like that's not in my field. But they have like, I know they've done studies too with like the blue light on your phones at night and things, and about how your sleep will be changed a little bit and stuff like that. So if you turn your blue light off like later in the day, it's like better for your eyes and things.
Mm.
That's all I know. Like I don't know like the in-depth things at all or anything, but like the blue light is a little harsher on your eyes, but it
Okay.
makes the picture crisper. So you can
I,
weigh out your pros and cons there.
what's more important, your eyes or what you're looking at, really?
Exactly. Take your pick.
Oh, so I mean, just put your like try to think about like maybe 5 or maybe 6 years ago when you're back at Lane, and then taking notes on paper like a cave person.
Yeah.
Now, how do you feel saying that you get to take notes on a tablet?
I mean, what is nice is the software that we take our notes on, you can record the lectures as you're taking notes. So it's really nice to go back and re-listen to lectures and what exactly the teacher was talking about at that time that you were taking the notes. So that part's really handy instead of like half the time you're doodling on your paper and you're
Yeah.
like, I don't remember what they were talking about. Like I have no clue. And so that part's nice about it. And I feel like my handwriting's a lot more sloppier on the iPad too. It's getting used to it. It's a little different, but yeah.
Yeah, like so this job I'm at now, one of the requirements is that you have to write like handwrite thank you notes to clients that like do a new kind of program with the company. So when I started, it was neglected. So I checked. We have like a task folder.
Okay.
I checked, and there's like 100 some thank you notes that have not been sent out. So I'm like, crap.
Great.
After like the first week or two, my right elbow, because I'm right-handed, sore as all heck.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, oh god, this I guess this is what it means to use your handwriting again.
Yeah. I mean, when you're like neglecting muscles in your hands and it's all the stuff attaches up at your elbow. So that's typing, writing, like, playing sports and things. And I get that same way. School starts again and my arm hurts so bad from sitting there typing or like writing so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just not used to it.
Oh, we will
It's
get
like going back to the gym.
exactly. Yeah, like you'll have that what lactic acid, which is the one
Sure.
scientific term that I will always remember. Uh,
Congrats.
th- thank you guys. Thank you.
Great. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Uh, yeah, and I just yeah, that was very much a hand because I want to when it came to doing the test, I want to make sure like I can remember how the word this muscle memory of like writing it down over and over and over again. I don't know, it's just old school
Yeah. Well,
mindset.
they've done a lot of studies too about like the difference in like memory between handwriting notes and like typing notes. And you really don't remember as much when you're typing notes as when you handwrite. So it is exactly what you said. It's like muscle memory for your brain, remembering what you were doing. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good thing. Handwriting your notes is good.
I think it's oh gosh, because I got to I was at Lane first, and then I remember taking some classes downtown, and then the idea of bringing your laptop to take notes was still new for me. And
Yeah,
I just remember like I did it a couple times, but I was like not fully paying attention.
right.
Do you have that temptation when you're like taking notes on your iPad of like, oh, I could just go check Facebook real quick or Instagram or whatever?
Yeah. So during school, I actually delete all my social media apps off my phone. So I have all that off. I didn't even download them on my iPad. And then I don't like have the alerts for like my messaging on my, on my Mac or anything. So I just kind of try to take all that out of it because like you're in class, all day, but then it's like you don't have time,
Hmm.
and so just really trying to keep the grades up and not get sidetracked because next thing you know, it's like an hour later on Facebook or whatever,
Yeah.
you just lost out on that. So I really try really hard just to stay away from all of that and just focus on class, but it's definitely a challenge.
So as we were trying to get this whole interview scheduled, I was just messaging you on Instagram because I didn't have your number. I
Mhm.
covered you for a little bit during your Lane Community College Titans women's soccer career,
Way
and
back when, yes.
and I was just like, oh, she's a former athlete. This would be great to have a conversation with her. And then it took me longest time like dropped from like when I sent that initial message to when you responded, just because you're busy, you're
Yeah.
focused, you're being a good student.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it was. I look on there and a bunch of messages and I'm like, oh man, I gotta reply, like I gotta get back. But like if I get done with like my homework on a long weekend, or if I'm like, okay, I'm studied up, I feel good about this test or whatever,
Yeah.
then I'll add it back on throughout the semester. But I really do try to just like not be on it as much as possible. It's just a lot like I don't know, you can get sucked into drama or different things and you do miss out because there's like a lot of people getting married or having babies and things like that. And it's like if you don't stay in contact with them over the phone, social media is great for that, keep up with everybody. So I do feel like I'm not keeping up as well, but it does help with school. So
Yeah, there you go. And this mindset. I mean, you're a former athlete. I'm a former athlete.
yep.
Having the good grades is priority one, obviously. So even before you're an athlete, were you always this studious and always thinking about homework first, then play?
Yeah, I just like, I'm really not that smart. So I have to work hard to be average. I keep saying that, but like growing up, I was always in like special reading classes and having help with math and like all that sort of stuff, like throughout elementary school. So it's like, I feel like I always had to work a little, like a couple steps harder than everybody else. And so, yeah, growing up in high school, I studied, just because I wanted like a normal grade, So yeah, so definitely I've always had to be a little like studious just because I
Yeah.
just got to keep up.
I was not good. I was not the greatest when it came to like because I think I was watching. I don't know if you ever heard the show Tosh Point oh, where he
Yes.
basically so he was just like obviously joking around, be like, oh, he's a comedian, and he's like saying, oh, if for a student to say they're bad at taking tests, that just means you're dumb. So I was just like that kind of stuck with me for a little bit,
Yeah,
especially at that point in my life when that show was big.
sure.
I was just like,
Right.
am I just I had some self-doubts. Or like
Yeah. I,
with
yeah.
you, did how did you kind of overcome that and just kept pushing?
Oh man, I think I just always knew what I wanted to do. So, growing up, it was like, fourth grade or not fourth grade, 4 years old playing soccer. And it's like, I wanted to go to college. Like that was just always my goal. And it's like, okay, to go to college and to get scholarships, need the grades, you got to be that way on that field. So it definitely like, I think just like my goals as a child really just pushed me to stay on top of everything in the classroom growing up. So
Okay.
yeah.
So y- now that also can be kind of isolating, right? When you're just always focused on studies. Do you remember the first time you were like had some random kid just like reach out to you and be like, "Oh, let's all hang out"? Because I remember I was a little socially awkward, especially when it came to like coming home, doing homework, and then doing video games. So not a whole lot of interactions. How were you as a kid when it came to interacting with others?
It was fine because it was, gosh, literally all I've done my whole life, was, play sports and do school.
Yeah.
But you always have your team around you. And so if you get a group of like athletes that are the same mind as you, you want to go play sports in college, you want to go do this, that it's like we all just kind of did it together.
Mm.
So I would always try to get all my homework done, throughout the week as I got it. That way I would have my weekends off for games or hanging out with friends or whatever that sort. But just surrounding yourself with that type of people. Like when I was at my Division 1 school out in Utah, that's what you did. The athletes hung out and y'all studied together. So it was like you're having a hangout in the library with all, like, 40 athletes from different teams, and you're all just doing homework and helping each other and doing things. So it was adding a social aspect because you just don't have time. That's what you have, So yeah, just like-minded people. And that's how I kind of got the social aspect with, being studious.
It does also create that bond. I mean,
Yes.
for football, it's like a brother bond. I'm sure with women's soccer, it's a girl
Same
bond.
type of girl
Yeah,
bond, girl,
yeah,
I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Yes, same type of a thing. Exactly. Sister bond, I don't know.
yeah, yeah. And prior to this interview, or we starting, I just asked you, like, have you kept up? Because Lane Community College, that was the first time we met, and it's there are times where, like, I want to keep up with, like, the people I played football with.
Mhm.
And then there are, like, times like this, like, let's say I have a former football friend on my show, and then I want to talk with them a little bit afterwards. But it's also like life is busy.
Life is very busy. And I feel like everybody, especially like throughout your 20s,
Mhm.
everybody scatters and is doing their own thing. You're trying to figure out who you are as a person and where you want to be and what are your goals for later and all this stuff. So I feel like your 20s is such a crucial time. And so you do get a little lost. You do get a little like not keeping in touch with high school friends or college friends or whatever. But it is nice to, like, I'm that type of person who's like, if I haven't talked to you in 5, 6 years, like we can pick up the phone and we'll chat, like no problem.
Mhm.
So it's nice when you get like that sort of a people, like, so that's, I don't know, I like that, but it is hard. It is hard keeping in touch. I definitely don't do as good a job as I should, but yeah.
I know, because, like, I reached out to you maybe 2-3 months ago, and then you're like, I won't be done with school till June. You would do it then. I was like,
Mhm.
That I respect that. Education's
Yeah.
first."
Yeah. That was so nice. It was a busy semester. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to touch base on that, in a little bit. But so I remember when I left high school, I was like, okay, I know my grades aren't great, but I can go to community college,
Mhm.
and I didn't feel too confident about it just because, like, everyone's going off to, like, 4-year colleges. How'd you feel going into a community college?
Okay, so my choice on going to community college was a little interesting. So it was my senior year of high school, so March. I was running track and pole vaulting and also playing club soccer.
Mm.
So we ended up going to a tournament down in San Francisco. I ended up tearing my ACL and having surgery and like all this sort of thing. So I did have a connection with the, lane coach, and he was great, but also a lot of my other offers ended up getting dropped because I was injured, and an ACL, you're 9 months out, to even getting on the field. So that really drew me there. And the lane coach was like, yeah, I'll keep your scholarship if you just want to come in red shirt and come, play when you're ready. And so I was like, all right, like get my school paid for and get a red shirt. Like that's great. Cause most of the time, unless you're like a super stellar athlete, you're not going to keep your, scholarship throughout your red shirt year. They'll give it to you when you're back on the field. But yeah, so that's what really made my decision. And it was Eugene, and growing up in like Medford area, wasn't that far away from home, being a little 18-year-old, it's hard to like take off, but I loved it. It was good. It was a really good experience that I don't think I would change. So,
Yeah, and from the time I saw you play,
mhm.
again, that's probably like your last 2-3 years at Lane, maybe somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Uh, you were ferocious. You were, jeez. I
Yeah.
just remember talking with my sports section editor, and he was just
Okay.
like, "Look out for Emily Walker." I was like, "All right," and then
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah.
just see you bolting down the sidelines. How did that feel? And obviously the injury, it's
Mhm.
that's a big setback. But when you got on that field and played for the first time after the injury, how did that feel?
Absolutely amazing. So especially for that first injury, because I ended up having a second one later on. But after that first injury, I was like rehabbed up. The athletic trainer there did a fantastic job. My PT before that did a fantastic job. I was feeling great. So you go in, you're a little timid, I went in for a tackle and then my knee was a little ugh. So I was like, oh, take me off the field. Like I'm not ready. And then I was like, okay, no, I'm fine. I'm not really not that hurt. Like we're okay. put me back on. So, but really just like the time at Lane was great, especially that like last year I was there. So the 2014-2015 season, we had a phenomenal team and we played fantastic. And it was just getting back on the field and playing after that just really kind of made me respect a different type of the game, because throughout high school I was very ferocious and I was very fast, and I could get away with a lot of things, but my speed wasn't as fast after my ACL, and I was a little timid about going into tackles like I used to, but I just changed my game. And you had those type of teammates who were able to adjust to that as well. So you would have a really good center mid who's able to distribute the ball well and things like that to kind of, make the outside backs a little more accessible.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I definitely was mean.
What age did you get your first major injury?
Oh, geez. So the first ever time I was ever on crutches was in fourth grade.
First off, the way you led up to that answer was that just like you sounded too relaxed.
Yeah, no, I'm used to this. Hey, this is why I chose the field I'm in,
Yeah.
So yeah, fourth grade, I had a really bad ankle injury. Ended up having to be in cast and on crutches. So that's just kind of what started the whole thing. And then I ended up having like tore part of my calf, your soleus, in eighth grade, broke my collarbone and had surgery on that in ninth grade. And then let's see, plenty of sprained ankles throughout that time, throughout high school. And then I was turning 18. So I was 17 with the ACL injury, and then rehab, played 2 years, and then retore my ACL and ended up taking out like 90% of my meniscus. So I'm bone on bone. So I was that athlete that had that conversation with the surgeon, as in like, you should never play again. Like, you need to be done. You shouldn't run. You shouldn't play again. Like, you need to take off sports, like, or anything like impactful. And I kind of just told them, I was like, well, I got 1 more year left. I'm going to play, and then we'll talk about this later. So yeah, I've been riddled with injuries. But it's fine. Like, I would never change my athletic career at all. And if it wasn't like soccer giving me injuries, it was track and pole vault, messing up my shoulders or my wrists or different things like that. But it's just what it is. I played hard, you get hurt.
I think that's also where we differ when it came to high school sports, because I tend to overthink. And then I was talking about this maybe like I think 3 or 4 episodes ago, where like I come up to make the tackle and then I just immediately go from like A to D or E. It's like, okay, what if I miss the tackle? What if I hit the tackle but then I get like knocked out and all these things?
Sure.
To start, next thing you know, I miss the tackle completely. So
right, yeah.
And while you were reckless, I was a little too cautious, and then, maybe that's why.
Opposite ends. It's fine. It's good. It works. But yeah, it was from an early age, because I guess I was pretty good from the start. I was pretty much a natural for soccer. And so I played with my sister's team, who was 2 years older than me. And so I was tiny. Like, I'm 5'3", and I really haven't gained much weight since high school. Like, I was an itty bitty kid. So playing with kids that are 2 years older, or even like the boys that are 2 years older, you kind of had to be a little aggressive because you're going to get bumped off the ball. So I think that's kind of what started that, as in, you got to keep up, so that's where the drive to be very competitive and a little brutal on the field came from. But
that also, 17, 16, 17, 18, having all these injuries, as far as just having some like thoughts in your head of like, is it really worth it? Did that ever cross your mind?
No. So after actually the eighth grade injury, I was in with a orthopedic surgeon, and he was looking at my calf and everything. And it was me, my mom in the little room, patient room. And he comes in and talks to me, and he's just like, here's the deal. Your body isn't meant to play soccer. He's like, you honestly should just give it up. And the thing is like, the injury was from track. And so you're telling a little, yeah, exactly. So I was like running, and obviously I didn't stretch enough, or there's already like micro tearing or something. Granted, I was dual sporting at the time. And, having an orthopedic surgeon tell you as an eighth grader, hey, you shouldn't be playing sports because your body isn't meant for it, that just pissed me off. Like I was just not happy. And so that's always kind of like been with me, as in just like, let's prove people wrong. Like I had a lot of people tell me I couldn't play defense because I was too short. And so I was like, I love defense. Like defense is great. I don't like being a forward,
Mhm.
and so I busted my butt and learned how to be a good defender, So it was always just like, I think I just have that drive to prove people wrong, that it kind of just pushed me the rest of the way through college sports. So
Now, uh, I don't know, using this orthopedic doctor for
mhm.
example, is there a moment, I don't know if you can fully remember the moment, but where you just let's say made a goal and you're just like, I just proved that guy wrong. Then who's next on the list to prove wrong? Did you
Yep.
keep a list, or were you just like, I feel just let all go?
I mean, I had a few people that it was really nice when I made it to a D1 like school and
Mhm.
played soccer at. It was nice to kind of knock some of those down. I had a
Oh.
few coaches on the list. I had actually an NAIA school I ended up trying out for. Um, let's see, the year after I played at Lane. So I had a rehab year and then I played 1 year. Went and tried out for this little NAIA school that my dad was the ROTC person at. And so I was like, oh, sure, I'll like, come be at your school. I get tuition assistance because you're there. Um, so she ended up telling me that, I wasn't good enough to play for her and, you're not going to make it, so just go back to your like junior college team. And I was like, all right, sounds good. We ended up getting a new coach. And I don't, did you meet Erica?
um
Jensen, I think was
I
her last
don't
time.
think
Yeah.
so. The last
Oh,
coach I remember, I think it,
Dave.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we ended up getting a new coach for my last year, Erica. She was a very technical player and just, she was great. And so I remember I got on the phone call with her when she was like there, her first little chat. And I was like, here's the deal. I got turned down by an NAI school and I know I'm a lot better than this. I was like, how do we get there? How do we start working on this? And she's like, all right, we'll get you there if you want to do it. And so it was, practice and then staying after for at least like an hour before the baseball boys took over our field. So stay after for an hour, work on technical stuff. And then I coached a couple teams with her, but instead of like really coaching, I was working, like doing the same drills as the kids. It's fundamentals,
Hmm.
So getting like perfecting your fundamentals was huge. And then she reached out to this team because I was Dixie State is a D2 team down in St. George, Utah. And Erica, my coach at the time, was like, oh, like I know the coach at Southern Utah. Like I think you'd be a great fit there. And ended up doing that and making a D1 team. And it was really nice to kind of be like, I made it. I'm like, thank you for everybody who told me I couldn't do this. Like I made it and I, worked my butt off to get here. It wasn't just off a natural talent.
Uh, NFL. Are you a big fan of the NFL?
I used to follow it, like,
Yeah.
especially when I was out in Southern Utah. We had, I think 2 kids get drafted and then a couple free agents signed, and they were like my friends. And so I watched a lot of football then, but the school I've kind of been like
Yeah.
easing off on it, but it's
Yeah.
definitely, I love anything sports. So,
So I assume you know Tom Brady,
Mhm.
famous quarterback. He was on LeBron James's like barbershop talk show
Okay.
called The Shop. The Shop colon uninterrupted. Don't no idea what
Sure.
the title means. But he was talking about, because he was with the Patriots for 20 years and then he jumped to Tampa Bay for 1 year. He was
Mhm.
talking about that process and that how there was one team that was like in the running. They're like, we're excited about you, but then they pull out last minute. And okay, the podcast. This is you can curse on this podcast. So
Okay, good.
he's like oh, you're sticking with that motherfucker, and then instead of me, I know how that feels. I'm gonna fuck you up next time I see you.
Yes.
Exactly how I picture your reaction
Yes.
when
Yep.
someone like just said no to you.
Oh yeah, no, it pissed me off. I was definitely just like not happy about it. And I was like, how am I like, I knew I was a good player. I knew I had things I needed to work on. And that's why I spent
Sure.
so much time after, especially that year, just really working on it and honing down on my skills and making sure like my imperfections were, very minimal at that time. And oh yeah, no, I was. a little fired up. Definitely shed some tears and, got that out. And I was like, all right, what do we need to do to fix this?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I am, though. It's even in school. If I don't do good on a practical or a bad test grade, I'm like, all right, what's next? How do we figure this out? What do I need to change? Like, what do we need to work on to get that much better? So I definitely carried a lot of that competitive drive from sports right into school. So
Hey, if you're enjoying my chat with Emily Walker so far, check out my other show, Conlu's Con Conversations, Tres C, with my brother, Jack Conlu. We talk about the NFL. We're trying to branch out to other topics of interest, but with the NFL season on the docket coming up, I thought that'd be it's a fun show. I have fun talking with my brother about sports that we are very passionate about because we're both former football players back in high school. So, we talked about, because by the time this airs, it will be preseason preseason week 3. There you go. So we talked about preseason week 1 at the time of that recording. So we talked about some of these rookie quarterbacks that finally made their appearances in NFL uniforms. So it was a lot of fun. And then, fantasy football. So we talk a lot of football stuff, but it'll eventually branch out to other topics. But for now, NFL is the name of the game. So it's available on all podcast platforms, only audio. And if you like to have a topic discussed by either, by the both of us, either message him at JAC_BITW on Instagram, or you can direct message myself at KCmedia13 on Instagram as well. So that would do. Without further ado, I should say, enjoy the rest of my chat with Emily Walker. So it sounds like you never had time to really swallow in any kind of defeat. Not like, big like sports, crying at the end of the game kind of defeats, but just with bad grades. Would you say that came from your dad being an ROTC or in the military mindset, or is that just something you just developed over time?
Oh man. I mean, so my dad.
We get deep in the show.
No, this is great. We can go for it. No problem. Yeah. So, I mean, I just come from an athletic family, So my dad, he had Division I offers to go wrestle, and so I come from a big wrestling family, and my dad's side is huge in wrestling. And though I didn't wrestle, even though I would love to, which I was just a little too old. Female, women's wrestling wasn't quite a thing then. And he was like, I don't want you wrestling boys. And I was like, all right, whatever, I'll stick with soccer. And then my mom was a gymnast. And then we had my brother, who was multiple sports, football, wrestling, baseball. And then my sister played soccer as well. And so we just came from a very competitive family. But I just think I always had that drive from being little. And I think that's kind of how my dad raised me. And I was an independent person too. My brother and sister were best friends. And then I was kind of stuck in the middle and was like, all right, cool. I'll just do my thing. So I think that, yeah. And I was and I knew I was good at sports. I was fast, aggressive. So I just knew I had bigger things than staying in a small town in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm I know I can do big things and go play at big schools and things like that. And it definitely helped with my dad and my mom being very supportive. They're whatever you need to do, whatever you want to do, we'll support you and get you through it, so it did help a lot having my dad's mentality being all right, go get him. He was always just before every game, he's go kick him in the neck meat. That's just what I know. That was his thing, in the neck meat. And I was all right, Dad, whatever, go do it. But it's just that athlete military mentality. And I was all right, man, let's go, So yeah.
Neck meat is a wrestling terminology also, because I remember in my high school wrestling days, they're kind of the is that what's the muscle over
traps
here?
Come traps. Up there. Yeah.
That's what I thought. I was gonna say traps, but I didn't want to embarrass myself.
You're right. You're good.
I just remember the wrestling coach showing a move. He's like, "Could I grab some neck meat?" And he just grabbed it right there. I was I just had nightmares from that time.
Yeah. So my dad would tell me to do that, and so it just. Yeah. Well, the thing is I think they always knew I could hold my own. So they never really worried about me either. So my mom always says, she's we'd drop you off at practice or at, your tournaments or games or whatever. And she's like, I knew what time your games were at every time. And she's like, the moment I got a phone call in the middle of your game, I knew something was bad. Because she's like, most of the time you can go down and you'll kind of lay there to like try to not get a card because you just hammered somebody, but you're gonna lay there and then you get off and give me a thumbs up while you're walking off the field or whatever. And she's like, oh no, when I got a phone call, she's like, I knew you were like beat up, like it was not good. So
Huh.
yeah.
So, how long was your dad in the military, or did he just kind of? I assume you can't just be a regular citizen and then go become part of the ROTC program. How
Sure.
long was he in the military for?
Sure. So he got into the military right out of high school. Well, pretty soon out of high school. I think it was a couple years out. Got in the military. He got out when I believe I was in kindergarten
Okay.
and was out for most of my elementary school and then ended up getting back in. So he's still in the military. So he's been his like current section, I guess you would say, was probably from like 2004 on or something like that, 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still in the military and my brother's in the military, and so it's just, yeah, so my brother's gonna, I don't think he's re-upping,
Mm-hmm.
but my dad's a lifer. He'll just retire from it and go from
Mm-hmm.
there, but he loves it. He's definitely military mindset.
Did you think about going into the military instead of this journey you went
Oh
on?
yeah, so that school that I tried out for, that NAIA school,
Okay.
I was thinking about doing that, but I went up to MEPS with Serena was going to do it with me. So Serena and I went up to MEPS together, and then I couldn't get in because I had a metal plate and screws in my collarbone. And so I would have to go get that taken out, get it filled. So that's a whole nother surgery, and then still see if you can even get in. But and it's a thought of mine. I mean, being out in Virginia for clinicals, we have a lot of like military opportunities that we can go do on like a bunch of bases. So that's a thought. But now kind of with my knee, if I don't get in, um, I couldn't get in now, but they do a little different for like once you have your doctorates and things, they kind of do the wavering in the medical side a little different. So it was a thought, but honestly, I would rather just be a civilian contractor and go do
Yeah.
that way, because it's just like I'm 27, I'm already beat up. Like I don't need to be reckoned with anything anymore. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah.
I know when he said 2004, your kindergarten around that time, I was just like, wow, what was I doing in 2004? I think I was hitting probably like, I would say eighth grade, but I was like in the still like the ends of middle school or
Sure.
elementary school. So I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And now I feel old.
I
Thanks.
got out of,
Thanks, Emily.
I know, well, okay, I got out of elementary school in 2005, I think, is when I got out of elementary school. So I might have said that wrong. But yeah.
You know what, it's not like a hidden fact that you're younger than me, so it's like, why am I putting up a fight about this?
Right. Well, and the thing is like I'm the second oldest girl in my cohort. So a bunch of our kids in our class are like 21, 22, 23. And I'm just like, man, I feel so much older than you guys. And we're literally in the same doctorate program. And it's like, holy cow. So I do feel that a little bit.
No, oh,
So
thank God. Thank you. I'm not alone.
yes, no, you're not alone. You're not alone.
So in the process from leaving Lane to you ultimately went to Southern Utah University to play soccer. There's University of Oregon, there's Linfield, there's other bigger colleges that could have used your services when it came to soccer. Did
Mhm.
Well, how was that kind of recruiting process like for you?
Sure. So I definitely worked a lot with Erica, who was my coach at the time. And I definitely wasn't good enough to play at like a big D1. I was in Pac-12 material. I just knew that. I like had that. I was like, all right, I'll go to like more like a Big Sky program, which was
Yeah.
what I ended up in, and it worked perfectly for me. It also just like the cost of tuition at a lot of these places, and a lot of our schools in Oregon are D2 and D3, and so they do cost a little more, and they don't give out as much like athletic scholarship as well. And I was just kind of ready to get out of Oregon. I
Okay.
wanted to go explore and kind of like really become my own person. So taking off to Utah, I have some family in Utah, like more in like the northern area. And then we had family friends that were living there as well. So I wasn't like totally just strung out like I am here.
Mhm.
in Virginia, but it was a really good place for me and I absolutely loved it. But I also didn't even go see it until I literally moved down there for like practice. So yeah, so I ended up meeting the coach and the assistant coach at a Dixie State camp because they do like the scouting camp. So you have a ton of schools there. So I met them and I was already in contact with them at the time, but they came down and met me, but I never went to the campus. So literally the first day of practice, I met the head coach, which was nuts because I was in contact with the assistant coach throughout most of the like whole process. And Erica talked to the head coach and things, but I didn't officially meet her till the first day of practice. So I remember we were just sitting there in a juggling circle and the head coach walks up and I go and leave and all the girls are like, where are you going? I was like, I gotta go meet coach. Like I've never met him. Like I was like, all right, you know. So it definitely was a risk for them because she hadn't seen me play besides my tapes that I sent her.
Mhm.
So it was mainly on the word of the assistant coaches, like, hey, this is a great girl. And Erica was married to Kat, who was the Oregon, University of Oregon soccer coach.
Mhm.
And Kat was like, she can hang around. Like, you know, I've seen her play. Like, she's great. And so I've had like really good just support, as in like, hey, just trust us. Like, you're gonna like benefit from this player.
Mhm.
So that was huge.
Oh, that's I always felt awkward when it came to like receiving that kind of praise because I just remember in high school I asked for a letter of recommendation from I think the marketing teacher or something like that, and then she's like, "Oh, I tend to always give like a copy of the letter to the students so they can read it," and I'm just
Okay.
reading it, I'm just like, "Are you sure that's me? Are you sure?"
Yeah.
Wait, I did that? But
Yeah.
did you ever like when it came to her reaching out to her associates or her partners? Were you just like, oh, like a little hesitant to receive that kind of help? Because you seem like someone that wants to make it on their own through
Sure.
everything.
I wasn't necessarily hesitant. It did kind of put a lot of pressure on me because I didn't want to disappoint them. You know, it's like I didn't want to, you know, not have the numbers and not have the things, which I ended up not because I ended up getting injured again, but that's a whole nother story. Um, but that was hard. And even like I need letter of recs for getting into PT school. And so reaching out, and I was just like, I feel like I always just feel like they don't know me as well either, you know, because you're in class with them or they see you on the field. And it's really hard to be like, do you know my character? Like,
Hmm.
do you really know what I'm about? And I'm like, am I good enough to like meet what you're giving me type of a thing? So I do feel that. I was like, is this really me? You know, is this really who I am?
Hmm.
But you have to ask for help though, you know, and it's hard, you know, because I do want to do everything by myself, but there are times where it's like for your, you know, requirements for your application you have to have a little bit of help.
Hmm.
So
Uh,
it's
remind me again. Do you have any siblings?
yes, so I have two siblings. I have an older sister and a younger brother.
How were they when it came for because example, like I asked my brother for help with math. He's a genius with math,
Mhm.
and then he helps me, but then he like continues to try and help me by like giving me another problem. I get frustrated because like I just want to get this homework done.
Sure.
How are you when they tried helping you with like let's say homework or just anything?
I don't like I definitely like I love my siblings, but I definitely was a little more like alone when it came to my siblings.
Hmm.
My sister was very much a tomboy growing up. She's not anymore, but very tomboy growing up. So her and my brother had a really good relationship.
Okay.
And then there was me who was like the princess Barbies and whatever. And, you know, that was just like not in their realm.
Mm.
And so like my mom and I were very close. So who I went to go do help was my mom. Like my
Okay.
mom's one of my best friends. You know, with my dad being deployed so much, she definitely just kind of had to take care of the family, you know, and be there with us. And she was the one who would take me up to my soccer games and, you know, really just be there with me. So yeah, my mom and I are very, very close. So instead of a sibling, it was always her.
Yeah.
So
Now, so like I think 2 episodes ago, I interviewed a former Oregon athlete, and he said that he's usually from Georgia, but then when he came over here to Oregon, his mom was just like, or actually, he came over here, and then he has some siblings that kind of followed him over to like California or just back
okay.
also to Oregon, and his mom messaged him and be like, "What are you doing? You set the trend for my kids to leave me, go across the country." What was your mom's response when you came to Utah and then now you moved to Virginia?
she was stoked. She was like, see you later, you're out of here. Cool. But I was like, both my parents, I think it was just me. I'm like, I feel like if my siblings left, they'd be a little more upset. I think they were just really proud of me and just
Yeah.
very like excited to see what I'm doing. And like now being in like PT school over in Virginia, like I don't have family over here. I didn't know anybody when I moved here. Um, and they're just excited. They're like, what are you going to do with your life? We're excited to see, where are you going to end up? What are you going to do? And so they're very, very like supportive of me. And they're like, we can just hop on a plane ride and come see ya.
Hmm.
And technology nowadays, you can have a FaceTime from across the country and it's no big deal, so you can basically see them every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they were just excited to see what I would do with my life, if they just let me go, because I do have, some past friends from like high school and things who haven't left. And I just feel like some people can get a little stagnant sometimes. And so for me, I was like, I have to grow as a person. I don't have anybody to rely on at this point. Like, this is all just me and who I am, and let's figure it out. So
Hmm.
I really just benefited so much from leaving the nest, so to speak, and just doing my own thing. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
I'm sure she loves visiting you and seeing the town that you've seen all the time, and just like seeing her face light up, because that's what my mom was like when every time when she came down to visit me when I was in school, and she's like, "Oh, can we go to the store? Can we go over here? Oh, you go there. I want to go there too. Let's do that."
Yes,
I was like,
yes,
"Okay, mom." And it kind of invigorates to you too. You're just like, "Yeah, my mom's excited," or "Yeah, my dad's
exactly.
excited."
Exactly. Yeah. When I was out in Southern Utah, my mom ended coming up to one soccer game, and then my dad wasn't out there until graduation. But for graduation, I had my mom and my dad, and my grandparents were out there. And it was so cool to show them around where I was going to school. I was
Hmm.
like, this is where I live in the library all the time. And this is my actual house that I'm hardly ever home for, but I pay rent at. And just the favorite spots, and showing them the field and the football field, and just like being able to share all those memories was huge. And
Yeah.
then my mom actually drove out to Virginia with me. So we took a 5-day trip and basically packed my car and just headed out across the country. And so she saw basically where I'm at and saw more of the, city than I really did, because
Hmm.
I was only out here for a couple of days for my interview, and then I flew home, but it was icy and snowy outside, and I didn't feel comfortable driving a rental, in the snow here.
Hmm.
Um, so it was really cool to be able to finally be like, hey, this is where I'm at. Because none of my family didn't really drop me off at college. My mom was in nursing school, going like when I was in school basically. And my dad was always doing his thing, either whether that be like military or work or whatever else. And so I just really just had to leave the nest by myself for the most part. But yeah, it's really fun when they actually get to come out and come see me.
That's even like, so I live by myself now, and even like taking my mom here, I'm just like right down the street from her, but it's like even showing her around here and showing her like how I've organized some things, how my feng shui is. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, it's nice. It's like a little vacation for her
it is.
down
Yeah.
the
And
down the street.
I just feel like in the future with like my kids, I feel like it's just so exciting to see where the youth is going. I have a ton of cousins and ranging from all sorts of ages. And just seeing them grow up and just seeing their personality, I'm like, I'm really excited to see what you do with your life. Like, what are
Yeah,
you going to be like when you're older?
yeah.
So I think that's kind of special for a parent to be like, I raised this, I let them go, and they ended up being a great person. So yeah.
So there's something I like, one last little thing on your soccer career.
Mhm.
My previous guest also was a former Oregon athlete, and he said that there's significance meanings behind the numbers you choose.
Sure.
I in high school I was number 60. I had no, like, the only connection I really had was like, oh, okay, this looks cool, let's take that, and I kind of rolled with it.
Yeah.
Did Was there any, so at Lane you were 18, and then at Southern Utah you were number 9?
Mhm.
Any significance there, or is it just kind of like rando choosing?
Little bit of both.
Okay.
So 9 was my number from the get-go. 9 is Mia Hamm's number. I wanted to be her when I grew up, do everything like her, be the person, except she was a forward and I wanted to be defender. So
Gotcha.
that was a little like interesting. But yeah, so Mia Hamm was a huge role model for me throughout like basically my whole career. And but it's a really hard number to get because she's a lot of role models for a lot of people.
Just
So
a little hard, a little hard.
yes, yes. So that's where 18 came into play. And I don't know, I just was like just drawn to the number. I couldn't tell you why or anything, but they ended up, well, and the thing is out at Lane, it was like a large jersey. And so everything was just huge on me. And I'm like, why did I pick a large when I should be in a small? But it just, I don't know. I just vibed with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was a good number, retired that thing, and it was good seasons with it. So
Yeah, yeah, you got to finish with it, which is again,
yeah.
unfortunately for college athletics, you couldn't buy off the number like they do in, like, let's say NFL, for example.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's weird too, because once you graduate and then you see a little freshman wearing your jersey and you're just like, okay, that was mine. Or, oh, my best friend had this number and now it's weird seeing this person wear it. And so it is different, but it is exciting to see where, the future, generations of your sport and what you kind of like set that standard for, kind of becomes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, especially at Lane, like we won our division, I think our last year there, and went to, you know, um, the big conference thing and ended up losing to, who did we lose to? One of the big schools. Gosh, it was so long ago. Maybe, yeah, I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, ended up losing to them in like the semifinals. And so that was just a really like good year. It was awesome. But yeah, so we kind of just set the standard. I think we were the first one to win our conference like ever for soccer at Lane my last year there. We just had a really good team because we had like Taylor Boyer, who came down from Oregon, and she was our center mid. And then soccer is kind of like an interesting sport where you need enough like finesse players who are very technical, but then you kind of need the go get 'ems like me and then Carly Wilcox like on the same side. And like we just played really well and kind of really aggressive. But then you have the finesse players in the middle to make all the technical stuff. And it was just really beautiful soccer that last year. Like I always said, I'm pretty sure that team could have beat my D1 team. Because I feel like we just had, I know, and I'm dead serious about it too. Because we just like, we had a lot of drive and we wanted to win, and you had enough of the technical aspect with, the kind of like the driven aspect to kind of, I don't know. So it was just, we vibed really well on that team. It was probably one of my favorite and most memorable years I played. Was that Lane? Yeah.
Yeah, and like it doesn't have to make sense explaining. It's just like if you feel like, oh, this is something special, then oh yeah, that's all you have to say. It's like this is gonna be great. And then it was like, got it, on it, let's rock and roll with it.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, you accumulated so many injuries in your life. Even like in the road leading up to this interview, like, I asked you about a few things. You're like, oh, my knee is still sore, ACL, blah blah blah. When you had to hang him up, how did that feel to officially say that this chapter is done with my life?
Absolutely miserable. Yeah, it was awful. So coming out of that surgery, so basically what happened was I made it to the D1 team. We played Dixie State, and then we played another D1 team, and then we flew out to go to a tournament in Texas. So we're still preseason. Literally got on the field. We had a free kick from outside the 18. I went to go rush the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper dropped the ball, went to go like plant and then go far post, and ended up tearing it again. So tearing it wasn't the problem. It was taking out all the meniscus. They couldn't get blood flow, which now I look back at it and I'm like, knowing the anatomy that I do, I was like, no, duh, you couldn't get blood flow to it because it doesn't get the blood flow that you need. And I think they could have done differently through that surgery. So that's a little hard. But anyways, coming out of the surgery and having the surgeon basically tell you, hey, you're done, hang up your cleats. Like you shouldn't be playing anymore because you're looking at a total knee replacement by 25. And if you keep playing, you just don't have any padding in your knee. So you're basically beating up your bone every time you run or do any like compacting sports or things like that. And that was really hard because I was only 3 games in to something that I worked extremely hard to get to. So I basically got out of that and I was in like a lot better place than I thought I was going to be because I was like, okay, I've been through this before. I know what I need to do. Let's get the rehab done and let's go. It was a little, my rehab, looking back at it, was a little, I think, stinted. I don't think they did as good of a job as they did like my first one with the people who I was with. They definitely didn't get me on the ball early enough. So my footwork wasn't there. Taking 9 months off of hardly touching a ball, that's going to make a difference. So I feel like all the stuff that I kind of really worked at kind of just dwindled away a little bit.
Mm.
And then after leaving Southern Utah, I definitely kind of had like that post-athlete depression type thing where, you just kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I had to go finish because of where I went to school. Southern Utah was on a semester schedule. And, Lane being a trimester schedule, when I transferred schools, my credits weren't worth as much. So I ended up having to change my major in order to stay eligible for soccer. And so basically I had like a chunk of prereqs I still had to take in order to get to PT school. So I graduated and then had to go back to school back in Oregon where I didn't really want to be. I was like, I miss being the athlete. It was the weirdest thing showing up to school the first day, not in your athlete gear and not being like, hey, here's my, 40 friends and everything, and it's fine. So not being an athlete, that took a big toll on me. Like, I feel like your just identity was kind of lost a little bit. And they talk to you all the time. We had sports psychologists come in and they're just like, don't identify yourself as like, hey, I'm Emily Walker. I play soccer at, Southern Utah. They're like, don't do that. Don't identify yourself with that. Be like, hey, I'm Emily Walker, period, in a story, and then this is everything that I have to like offer you. So, and of course I didn't do that. I definitely identified myself as, a D1 athlete, and I was pumped and I was like, let's go. Like, I've worked my life for this. And then getting told like, hey, you're done. And then really that season after that just wasn't, really what I wanted it to be. And so that was really hard to like work so hard for something and then come out of it not feeling fulfilled and feeling like you have so much like left to offer, the sport. And so that was really hard. But and it's still hard to this day. It's hard to watch soccer sometimes. I miss it and shouldn't really be playing it at all because it's just not going to be great for me. But yeah, so it was rough.
Yeah, and so it's your situation's a little more interesting because let's say I retire from football, I don't have to like I can do things to simulate football, like I can do sprinting, I can lift weights, so things I did when I was playing. For you, you retire, you can't run, you
Yeah,
you can't do anything physical
yeah,
that a normal person can do.
exactly.
What was that? You talk about athlete depression.
Mhm.
What other kind of depressions did you feel? How did you get through them? And what was kind of the low point you kind of acknowledge yourself at? Because I've had low points, but they're not related to athletics. Because I know, like in high school, I was like, I'm not the most athletic. I'm just a body,
Like, I
but
played,
okay.
that's great. Have the memories.
Woo.
Yeah.
So like I've had down like hitting rock bottom during relationships. So how did you what at what point did you acknowledge that, okay, I think this is rock bottom as a former athlete and
Yeah.
as a person that loves to exercise?
Yeah. Definitely that summer after I graduated, I ended up going on a trip with Serena. Right after graduation, we went to Germany and visited there. And then it was like right after I graduated. So I didn't really have time to even like move home or do anything. And so I got back from that trip and ended up moving back in with my mom because I was going to school down at Southern Oregon to finish some prereqs. And moved back in with her. And I was just like, I don't want to do anything. Like, I had no drive at that point, no anything. And that's not me, you know? So the fact that I was like content with laying on the couch for hours, watching Netflix was like not okay, And so that was really just a little eye opening about like, you got to get your stuff together, And my mom was great about it. She's like, I know you're going through it, because you can't run, you can't do anything. And so, like, you can't even go play a pickup game of basketball or whatever, sand volleyball or stuff. I can do it. I probably shouldn't do it. That's the thing. They're like,
Mhm.
let's just make your knees last as long as possible.
Yeah,
Um, but that was just really hard. And then I ended up getting a job. I worked at like Dutch Bros for a little bit,
I
I
could
love
see that. I could see that actually.
I loved making coffee, but it's very much just like I like the business. It was great, but there's a lot of drama in a
Yeah.
tiny stand. And so that was a lot for me. but I loved waking up in the morning and just making some coffee. That was great. So I think that kind of like gave me a little bit of a purpose. It's like, you got to get up and go to work. Like, you got to start doing something. You can't just be laying here all summer till school starts. It's not okay. And that was the first summer I've ever had off. Because you always started practices, end of June, you're starting. So you get like a couple weeks off, go hang out with your family, go on vacation, and then you're right back at it doing sports and, just summer training, which was miserable. The amount of running you have to do and conditioning.
Yeah.
Awful.
In the heat, which I assume there's, high heats
Yep.
down in Southern Oregon.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
So so that was, it kind of gave me a little bit of a purpose. And then I was doing school and I decided to just throw all my prereqs at once in, and it was a heavy load. I don't know what the heck I was thinking.
Keoni Chats is probably sponsored by Cove Hard Yerba Mate. Josh Meckler is a good friend and former guest of the show, and after his episode where he came on and talked about the origins of his company Cove, I was curious, what the heck does yerba mate taste like? So after I went to the grocery store, got that yellow can that said yerba mate, I got the baseline understanding. So after that, my next question was, what does it taste like with alcohol? So a little bit after his episode, Josh was very kind and sent me a package with all 4 of his flavors, including a berry, a lemonade, a mango colada, and then also a mojito. So I loved all 4 flavors at different times just because I didn't try them all at once. I tried them at different spurts, but you really can't go wrong with any flavor. I'm a big citrus guy, so this appeals to that while also helping me get a little loosened up, and also the waist stays a little thinner. So if you'd like to try some of Cove's Hard Yerba Mate, go to hardyerba.mate.com, hardyerba.mate.com. Scroll around, make a cart, add a little bit of this flavor, a little bit of that flavor, throw in a shirt, throw in a hat. So why not? So before you check out, though, use the discount code Keoni Chats Cove, KEONICHATSKOVE for 25% off your total purchase. That is huge. Thank you to Josh and the folks at Cove for believing in the show and giving the fans a little, incentive is kind of a weird way to put it, but it's an incentive. Giving them that opportunity to try your products and also have a little bit lighter in the pocket. So let's call it that. So check it out. hardyerba.mate.com. Discount code Keoni Chats Cove, 25% off. You must be 21 years and older to purchase any alcohol from Josh. The discount code still works for clothing. And everyone, please enjoy responsibly.
And so got like the worst grades of my life. So then I'm kind of hating being there, got the worst grades of my life, was just extremely like unhappy with where I was, didn't want to be in Southern Oregon, was just really, really struggling. And then for one of the classes, I ended up having to do like an internship. So they set you up, or you have to go find one. So I ended up going back to the PT clinic that did my ACL rehab, and ended up doing which was Medford sports injury. Ended up doing like my internship or whatever with them, and really just like fell in love, got my groove back, was like, this is where I need to be. Like, you walk into that clinic and I'm just excited to be there, and it's just like a bunch of tables and like old people and some athletes, that's what's in there. But I was like, I love it. I'm like, give me all the hip replacements or knee replacements. I'm like, I don't care if I've seen it like 30 times, I'm ready for it. So ended up interning with them for like a long time. So doing job shadow hours and things like that. And I wasn't able to work there for a while because of just like school and things. And then it was it probably like March? So March of 2019, I think, I ended up working there. The first day I was supposed to work, I ended up getting my email saying that I got into PT school. And so I was like, all right, like I'm starting like my job, but also like, holy cow, I just got into school and I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to work for you guys like for as long as I wanted to.
Yeah.
But that was such a surreal feeling because it's like I didn't think I was going to get in. You
Mhm.
have to take a GRE and like it's just standardized test. It's what it is.
Mhm.
I'm not good at that because I can't read, I can't do math, and I can't spell. So that's literally the whole entire test. You have like two essays you got to write, and then you got to do reading comprehension, and then you got to do a lot of math. And I'm like, cool, all the stuff that I'm not great at. So my test scores weren't great. They were fine, but they were just normally little under the minimum of what a
Mhm.
lot of the schools like required. And so I got a lot of denial letters about, hey, like your GRE score wasn't good enough. Hey, we wanted a little more of this, or hey, your math scores from like undergrad at Lane aren't good enough. And I'm like, cool, that was like forever ago. Great, I should retake math. And then finally got my acceptance letter to Shenandoah and was ecstatic. I was like, I went into that interview just being like, all right, I'm here for the education and like, I'll just, just go with it, just wing it. Like, I wasn't like really expecting that at all. Got the acceptance letter and I was like, okay, I'm moving across the country. Like, that's
Mhm.
insane. But yeah, that being back at that clinic really just kind of got me out of my funk and was able, there was great other kids that were working there as techs who I ended up like being friends with to this day that I still end up talking to, and they're like my best friends. Um, and so that got me out of my funk instead of, because like I said, it's normally when you walk on a campus, you got all the athletes are your friends. It doesn't matter if you talk to them before, like, hey, you're on the volleyball team, cool, like sit next to me, like that's great, I'm an athlete too. Then walking into my first day of school, I was like, okay, I don't know anyone. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not an athlete. Like, what am I? I'm just a regular student. So that was really weird for me. So being at the clinic, making the friends, like doing everything, that really just like got me out of my funk and was able to kind of just put me back on the track as like, all right, you got stuff to do. Like, let's go. So
So,
yeah.
I mean, that is amazing. That is absolutely the best thing you can do when it comes to that. The situation you face is just like
Yeah.
trying to find a new spark, find something else that'll
Mhm.
just like light the fire under your butt. But
Right.
you can't work forever. You can't work all day, 24 hours a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
um what else did you do to kind of, because it's great because you
Yeah.
can go out, your mind's not thinking, but then you come home and you're just like settling, and then I don't know for you, but for me at least, I'm settling in, then the thoughts start creeping back in. What was another hobby, or what else did you do when you weren't working to kind of help you get through the
Oh,
soccer or the retirement, and then
yeah.
try to help push yourself to continue to get better?
Yeah, see, that was hard because my hobbies were soccer. And then if it wasn't soccer, it was track. So it was either pole vault or I was running. Like
Hmm.
running was a huge release for me. Like I would just go take off and do like a few miles at night and, call it good. Like that was like, I miss that. I miss being able to just like hit the road and just go, and come home like 40, 50 an hour later, whatever. Um, so it's hard. I still struggle with hobbies. I
Hmm.
still struggle because I think also like there's a lot of hiking in Southern Oregon. That's great. But I feel like I've done so much cardio in my life and like hiking's not as enjoyable for me as like normal running is. And so
Hmm.
I don't know if I have like a little vendetta against hiking because I can't just like, go run. So
Yeah.
I don't know. But hiking was, I did the hiking, I did the thing, especially when I was out in southern Utah. Zion was only like 40 minutes from us. So we went
Hmm.
hiking a lot. So I ended up weightlifting. Like I lift a lot. So I go to the gym a lot. And so I end
Hmm.
up like weightlifting because it is with like what I'm going through with my knees and things, it's let's strengthen everything else. So, get the hamstrings and the quads and everything just as strong as you can be in order to like maybe take a little pressure off of your knees.
Hmm.
So as long as I'm doing the lifts right, then I'm fine. Which is actually good to do a little bit like that. But so I lift when it's warm out, I'm like on the river a lot, going kayaking or whatever.
Hmm.
So that was also something that I do. Yeah, that's still hobbies is still hard for me. I
Hmm.
still am struggling to find a release for me besides like just laying out by the pool. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely still hard because I think growing up, for 24 years doing the same thing every day, it's hard to figure it out. What else do I like? Like I didn't have time to go off and go play and do things. So it was either at practice or doing school or whatever. So yeah, I still have a hard time with that.
Yeah, because when I found, obviously when you told me you're not running anymore, and this is my first time seeing you in like, I don't know, 20 lifetimes.
It's
Um,
been forever.
yeah,
Yeah.
it has. So I'm just like, what kind of shape is she in? I have no idea. And then I see you now, you're like, you look in fantastic shape. And then when you
Yeah.
say you're lifting, I was like, yeah, that fits. That
Yeah.
fits.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
That's like my one like escape. Like last night it was late. I think it was like 9:30 and I ended up just throwing on some headphones, going to the gym and work up a really good sweat and whatever. Cause it's like I don't have a lot of other like outlets because everything has to do with running. You
Mhm.
can't go play pickup basketball or go whatever. So I swim and run and things. But lifting has really just been, granted, I'm not as good as it as I should. Like I should be going more, but like there's some days where I'm like, nah, man, I'm good. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna hang out. But lifting is my release now, even though it's not my favorite, but that's what I can do. So I do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So you are now, you're in your doctorate's program for physical therapy. How are you feeling about the spot you are right now versus when you started?
sure. So when I started, I was so stoked. I was
Yeah.
like ready to go. I was like, I've been waiting for this for so long and like all about it. First semester went great, like no problem. Ended up going back home and going to that same PT clinic I was working at and ended up like shadowing with them again. And it's just like, oh, this is why we do this. And I know why you were doing this now. And everything was starting to click. Second semester was really rough. It was
Mm.
rough for basically our whole class. Like our straight A students were struggling. They just kind of hounded on the hours. It was
Mhm.
it was a lot. So they kind of took a lot from what they did in COVID. So Panopto, so like online recordings of like lectures and things. They would give us those. So you would have like, 20, 25 hours, 30 hours worth of like all like on top of normal class schedules, class to watch.
Mhm.
So it's like you really didn't have time to even study. So it was like between all, and there's just like a lot of busy work, just like, hey, write a 2-page paper about this, or hey, do this, or hey, so all this like busy work on top of all the lectures, on top of like trying to study for your classes. And then we have like test days. So like this test day they were on Monday. So you can have up to 2 tests a day. And they're like 2 to 3 hours long. And so then sometimes they weren't very nice and they paired like the two hardest classes on the same test day. So that was really rough. Yeah, I was like, did you guys talk to each other when you guys figured this out or like what? Because I was like, well, how are you doing like in a neuro class and like the hardest anatomy class? Like what was your thought process on this?
Yeah.
So that was really tough, but it was like for the teachers too, they're trying to figure it out too. They changed their curriculum for COVID. They found some things that they really liked and wanted to add them in for us, but didn't like take anything else away. So you're just adding on top of it. And so it was a lot. I ended up fine with my grades and just had to take off time from the gym didn't really work out. So I'm like in my study room, doing lunges and squats and things like trying to do something or take a couple laps around the parking lot or something. But it was a lot. And so I got done with that semester and it was really weird to get done with a year or even a semester and not have like the anxiety about like, oh, I need to be doing schoolwork, I got to be doing this, I got to be doing that. That year or the last semester, I was just done. I was like,
Mhm.
I'm over it. I'm done. Here you go. I did it. Like no anxiety, no anything left over. I was like, I gave it my all and I'm done. And so a group of us and I, because we're really not that far, we went to the Outer Banks and ended up renting a beach house. And we just sat on the beach and we all literally got there, got to the beach, we laid down, and it was like 10 minutes later, all of us are just dead asleep. Like just absolutely exhausted. Cause you get up and you're like, for those who would go to the gym, they would have to go to the gym about like 5:15 in the morning in order to get in a good workout,
Yeah.
shower, and then go to
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
I don't run good on like low sleep. Like I wasn't like I'm not a good crammer. So the night before a test, like I'm in bed by like 9 o'clock. Like I'm just like, all right, I got to get my sleep because I just don't work well when I don't sleep. So I knew that sleep was a big priority for me. And I'm like, all right, so the gym has to go. Like, that's all I have
Mm,
left. So you basically get to class around like 6:45, 7 o'clock. You have class till about 3 to 4, sometimes 5 o'clock, depending on if you have a late lab. And then I just like heat up my dinner and go in a study room, and you're there till like 11 o'clock at night when they kick you out. And then you go home and shower and go to bed and do it all over again. Like that was literally my life, was just living in a study room or in class for like that whole semester. Cause it was just like that intense, but it was also like so exciting. Cause I was like, I did this and I did a pretty dang good job at it.
mm,
I'm like, if I can get through this, like I got the rest of school, like no problem.
yeah.
And they say that too. They're like, this semester was the hardest semester, like test wise, because they really just hammer on the tests.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, like school during COVID, then not just like school during for the undergrad, or school during COVID, going for the doctorates, doing all the online courses and trying to like, I took one online class and I was just like, I have a hard time balancing like working with this, and it was
uh,
just one class and the
yeah,
homework
yeah.
assignments, just trying to remember all that. So I applaud you for
Thanks.
making that through.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, we were very fortunate to have my school kind of just went all in. They're like, all right, like for the second and third years definitely were not on campus as much as we were,
Mhm.
until like second semester once the vaccine started coming out and more of our class was vaccinated. But it was mainly like us, and I think some of the pharmacy kids were on our campus. So we were able to basically be in class almost every day. We had like one day that was like an online, or every once in a while we'd have a class and be like, hey, like we're just gonna have class on Zoom today, like sleep
Mhm.
in. So we were very fortunate. Granted, we did have to wear masks, but they split our cohort up into two like sections because there's 40 of us on our campus. And so we
Mhm.
just had 20 in one room and 20 in the other room, and you had your own desk and your social distance. And so for me, I was very thankful to come to a program that did this, where like I still felt comfortable. I still felt like I had somewhat of a normal academic year.
Mhm.
Unlike like one of my other friends ended up getting into PT school, one of them in Oregon, one of the new campuses. And he starts this summer and they're all online this summer. And I was
Oh.
like, that's crazy. Granted, they're gonna
Oh.
like pick up in the fall,
Yeah.
but their whole summer term is online. And I was like, I think about how like interactive PT is, and it's like you just kind of got to be there,
Mhm.
and also just like I don't pay as much attention as I do, as in class. Like when I'm on Zoom, I'm like, oh, the dog's barking or my phone's going off and the teacher
Mm.
can't see me. Like it doesn't matter, but when I'm in class, I'm just like focused. I'm like, teacher knows what I'm doing. They'll call me anytime. Like, I got to pay attention and keep up. But
Yeah.
I was very thankful that I ended up in a program that was able to kind of have us in class and in person.
So as you've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes, I've been like there's something about like I was trying to figure out how to like properly ask this to you because
Sure.
um so I'm just gonna ask it. When it
Sure.
comes to a relationship with
Sure.
someone else, with how you I now learning about how you operate, as far as like you're always working, you're
Yeah.
always thinking about sports or thinking about PT or whatnot. How do you make time to
Yeah.
find love?
Sure. Sure. So undergrad, it was you date other athletes. Like I really, even out of undergrad, I don't think I've ever not dated an athlete.
Mm,
I think they just like your schedules line up more, even though you don't really have much of a schedule, but they
true.
line up a little better. You always have practices, everything's kind of like with each other, and you just understand like what they're going through. You're like, I get it. If you don't want to talk tonight because you just had a game or you just did this or your workout sucked and you got this big project due, go for it, do your thing.
Mhm.
Out of sports has been a little different. It's definitely been a little harder. But I actually kind of how I got out to Virginia was one of the kids was doing his long-term clinical at the clinic I was working at. And we kind of hit it off, and he was from Pennsylvania. And so he really suggested, he's like, oh, apply for some, East Coast schools, whatever. And so Shenandoah wasn't that far from where he was at. Um, and it was only about a year, but it also was like we split up before I got out here. But I just think about it and I was like, if I had to date somebody throughout PT school, and I went through like a lot of my friends and people in my classes were, and I was just like, how are you guys dealing with this? Because it
Yeah.
really is so hard to balance times. And a lot of the kids have families, like they got like a kid or two. And so them dealing with that is just like a lot on top of it. And I was just, it was very, I know my time is coming and I'm very open to it, but it
Mm-hmm.
has been a little like that had to be on the back burner, you know? If something came along, then great, but it's definitely it's kind of sad. Like my one of my dad's military buddies, he's like, "Does your daughter ever date anyone?" And I was like, "Okay, hang on. Yes, I do, but like also I don't post it all over social media so you don't know about it."
Yeah, yeah.
But it's been hard, but also I kind of just had to make that choice. I was like, all right, do I do career first and then do the family thing later? And which is what I do, like what I ended up doing. But it was hard. And I'm like, I am getting older. So I'm like, all right, I'm not going to graduate till I'm 29. And then I want to be in a practice and
Mhm.
want to go work or possibly do travel therapy for a little bit. And I was like, so do I date another PT if I find somebody who's that? Because maybe they can like do the same thing as me. But there's a lot of like unknowns in the dating world. So
Yeah.
it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah,
No
because
problem.
I also think about how I was in college when I was dating. I was a dumbass. I
Sure.
was I was just like I was selfish. I was also like I don't know what I'm doing, but
Mhm.
I still made through some relationships. So I imagine like for if you're still in your doctor program, but that
Yeah.
just sounds like I you know I'm in a happy relationship, but it's like if I imagine like myself dating someone else like yourself that's in a doctor program doing all this, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that could be tricky.
It takes the right person. It's and we see that like even with our like classmates, some of the significant others are great and totally understanding, and then the other ones are like, you're not spending enough time with me, and they're like, I don't have time to give.
Yeah.
So that was hard, but I've kind of like even through high school, I had like two relationships that were like 2 months long, and they were just like, "Hey, you're not like giving me enough," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, like doing sports and doing things, and I know I'm not going to be with you, you know." So I just, I don't know. I was always kind of that way, but it's like also I go to family gatherings, and my brother just proposed his girlfriend, so I'm like, I
Hey.
am the oldest, one of the oldest like cousins and like family members that doesn't have a significant other.
Yeah.
And so I have cousins younger than me that do. And so I'm just like, all right, it's a little lonely. Like I miss that. And I would love
Hmm.
to have that, but also just like, I don't want to settle for something less than perfect, you know?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I know perfect has a wide range of what it should be or should not be. And, but I just like, I have a lot of goals and things I want to get done with my life. And I'm like, if you can't keep up, I'm sorry, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
you should you want to again, this is sound weird, but it's like you want to you want to get on this train, you got to understand what it's coming with.
exactly. Yes, exactly. And that's kind of always how it was with sports and things. And I think that's why I always dated athletes because we were on
Mhm.
the same schedule. I went on a date. I think I went on like a date or two with one kid that wasn't an athlete. And I was like, hey, man, like this isn't working. He blew up my phone telling me that
Oh,
I need to get
jeez.
out of my athlete bubble and I'm not going to be an athlete my whole life. And, you know, and all this stuff. And I was like, all right, like good for you. Like I'm glad you had those feelings. I'll see you later, man. But I'm
Yeah.
just it's really hard. And even with PT, because in schools a lot, and but it's also like med school kids. Med school kids have a hard time too. And
Yeah.
you know, so it's like any big program or very like career driven person, I feel like has
Mhm.
similar problems.
I mean, if
But
you have any questions, watch Grey's Anatomy. They go through
I,
relationships like crazy.
see, there you go. Exactly. Same thing, right? Oh man.
Oh, Emily. So I like to wrap up my interviews by asking two hypothetical questions from this packet of 170.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, if you would like to come back and go through all 170, sure, we'll make that happen. But I'm pretty sure you're busy, so
Sure.
that might be
Right.
some
Probably
chance.
won't happen. Right.
So, people know how how I do my research is go through social media. You don't have a whole lot, and also as you've said in this interview. So my question to you: if people were required to post the bad as well as the good stuff that happened to them on social media, what social media platforms would be, let's say, more or less popular than they are now? So
I don't think Instagram would be as popular.
yeah.
I feel like Instagram, like on mine, I don't have a lot of the bad on there. You know, it's very much like I have a little pictures here and there from soccer, a few hiking trips, and some friends. But I'm like, I don't really have like my bad moments. I went through like a whole stint of like not even posting on there. I was like, when I was in Southern Oregon, I was like, I don't want to be here. Like my good isn't good. Like I hardly posted at all. But then when I was in Southern Utah, I posted a lot because
Mhm.
I was super excited about it. But I feel like that's that way. I feel like you do get a little more of the bad on like a Facebook type thing or things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And then I stay away from TikTok
Good
because
good call.
everybody just says how addicting it is and how they'll spend hours on it. I'm like, okay, I'm not even touching it. I was like, I don't have time for that anyways. Like, I'm just staying out of it.
Yeah.
So, and then I deleted my Twitter like years ago. So yeah, so basically, I think like I feel like Twitter does get a little bit of a bad rap as well. A
Mhm.
lot of vent sessions on there, but yeah, I think Instagram wouldn't be as popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think actually Snapchat for me died a little bit,
Oh,
but I
Snapchat.
feel like
Yeah.
it would make a resurgence if this would happen just because it's only
Mhm.
24 hours. No one's gonna know.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
missed.
I love Snapchat. I think I'm like one of the few that's still like I post way more on my Snapchat than I do anywhere else. And everybody's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know. Like this is just what I grew up on. I never
Yeah.
changed, you know."
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, my girlfriend's still on Snapchat. And
Uh-huh.
then there are times she texts me. She's like, if you were on Snapchat, I could have showed you what fun thing just happened. I'm just like,
Right? Well, yeah. I tell my family that too. I'm like, I don't really post much on like Instagram, Facebook, whatever. But I was like, you follow me on Snapchat and you'll almost see something every day. You know, that's where my go to is. And I'm just like, all right, nobody
yeah.
else is on there. So it's fine, but whatever. Yeah.
So this one, it was probably more for my pleasure than
Sure.
yours, because you are very busy with school and then just everything else going on with life. But if you were a superhero or supervillain, but could only have superpowers that weren't already taken, like you cannot fly, you cannot bend metal or whatnot, what new powers would you choose, and what would your name be? Actually, first, would you be a superhero or a supervillain?
Oh man. Okay. So if you ask me nowadays, I would
Yeah.
100% be like, not a super villain. But if you ask me back in my like soccer playing days, oh yeah, I'd be a super villain, like no problem.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That was
yeah.
very much me. Um,
So
oh
then, what would your powers be that weren't already taken? So we'll just take it step by step.
yeah. I think I'd probably have to just be like a like super PT or something. Like just have like, make my job extra easy. I don't know. Cause I think like reading minds would be really cool, but like that's already taken.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, there's all your test answers right there. I don't even gotta like worry about it, It'd be cool, I'd be extra smart.
That's
Um, yeah, because I can't even have extra arms because that's kind of a thing too. Yeah,
there's a lot of like superheroes that have all these odd ass like you
yeah.
know.
Because like when I got the vaccine and everybody was like, "Oh no, what are you gonna do?" And I was like, if it can grow me an extra arm or two, like that'd be really handy. Carrying in the groceries or like working on
Mm-hmm.
patients. It might be nice to have 4 arms, to,
Yeah.
like stitch and whatever. But yeah, so I don't know, maybe like a super PT, I guess.
Super PT, I love it. So
Yeah.
what would your name be?
Oh gosh, I'm horrible at this. Oh man. Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
Yikes.
What do you think? Let me answer the same question. So,
Yes, please.
I would be. I think I'd be. Oh God, I go superhero because
Okay.
if I do be a supervillain, my overthinking and anxieties would just skyrocket.
There you go. Okay.
My superpowers that weren't already taken. Um, oh God, I was thinking something along with that lines of vaccine too. Maybe I can just like throw it into people automatically.
Yeah, that's it.
I
Vaccine or something.
You're vaccinated. You're vaccinated. You're vaccinated. Sure.
There you go. Oh man.
I think my name would be, you know what? Superhero names that mix with Spanish. I think they're just hilariously fun. So Vaccinito, let's call it that.
There you go. Come on with mine. I don't know. You're better at this than I am.
PT Saurus.
Love it. We'll go
There
with
it is.
awesome. Done.
So, Emily, where can the people find you on Instagram since that's the only one?
Oh, Jesus. You know what? See, this is how bad I am about this. I don't even know what my name is. Oh, so it's Ewok_9.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And then I do actually have one last question for you. So we talked
Okay.
about identity. So, so can you tell the people that are checking out your episode, who are you?
Oh, yikes. Who am I? Very lost, but excited about life. Because I'd love to say, like, hey, I'm gonna be a PT, but then that's also being like, hey, you're identifying with something else, you know? So I don't know. I'm an introvert living in an extrovert's body, I guess I would say. There you
That
go.
was
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes.
Emily, we're in different time zones, so I know it's probably getting late for you. So thank you for taking time out and reconnecting with someone that covered you that didn't know what they're doing as a reporter.
That's fine. I loved it. It made me feel really cool. So I was down with it. I was like, all right. That was great. It was really good chatting with you.
Thank you so much for sticking around until the end of the episode. If you like what you heard or watch and would like more episodes from Keoni Chats, the show can be found on all podcast platforms and YouTube under Keoni Chats. If you want to keep in the loop on other creative content releases, you can follow KC Media on Instagram and Twitter under KC Media 13. And then on Facebook, it'll be under Conlu K Media. So if you'd like to be a guest, email me at kcmedia13@yahoo.com. Tell me your story. I'd love to get you on the show. So until the next episode, everyone, please take care.